The wind howled across the frozen plains, carrying tiny shards of ice that cut through the dark night like glass. Captain Ryan Hale pulled his damaged coat tighter around his shoulders, his breath forming white clouds in the freezing air. His ship had crashed hours ago, far from the main colony, and his emergency beacon was broken. He was alone in the silence of an alien world, until he heard a sound that didn't belong to the storm. It was a faint cry, soft and trembling, like the whimper of a child. Ryan froze, his instincts screaming that nothing should be alive out here. Still, he followed the sound, his boots crunching through the snow until he saw a small shape half buried near a pile of burning metal. An escape pod, alien design, with strange symbols glowing faintly under the ice. Inside, curled up and shaking, was a little girl. Her skin was pale silver, her hair almost white, and her eyes, when they opened, shone with a soft blue light. Ryan's heart stopped. He knew what she was. He had seen pictures before the war ended. A Zyra, one of the ancient alien species humanity was told to fear. The child tried to crawl away, her movements weak, her lips trembling as she whispered something in a language Ryan couldn't understand. She was shivering so hard that her small body looked like it might break apart. Ryan hesitated, the rules echoing in his mind. Do not engage with alien life forms. Do not offer aid. But when he saw her eyes fill with tears, he couldn't walk away. He knelt beside her and slowly took off his coat, wrapping it around her shaking form. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." The girl stared at him for a long moment, then finally relaxed a little in his arms. Her skin was cold, colder than the snow itself, and faint blue lines pulsed along her neck, like glowing veins. Ryan had never seen anything so fragile, or so strange. He carried her out of the wreckage, moving toward the small cave he had found earlier. Each step felt heavier as the storm grew stronger. When they reached the cave, Ryan placed her near a small fire he'd made from broken ship parts. The warmth flickered across her face, making the blue light under her skin shimmer like liquid stars. The girl tried to speak again, her voice thin and broken. Ryan shook his head gently. "Don't talk, just rest." But she lifted a trembling finger and touched his chest, whispering one word that sent a chill down his spine. "Mother." Ryan froze, staring at her in shock. "Mother," he repeated quietly. The girl nodded weakly, her eyes already closing. Then she fell into a deep, heavy sleep, her breathing shallow but steady. Ryan sat beside her for hours, feeding the fire and watching her. He couldn't explain why he felt so protective of her. Maybe it was because she reminded him of the daughter he had lost during the last war. Maybe it was because no living thing deserved to die alone in the cold. Outside, the storm finally began to fade, and the sky turned dark blue. Ryan stepped to the mouth of the cave and looked up at the stars. Strange lights moved across the sky, too smooth and too silent to be human ships. He realized someone, or something, was already searching for the girl. A faint beeping came from his wrist device. Ryan looked down and saw that his signal was being tracked. He quickly turned it off, fear tightening his chest. If the Galactic Authority found out he had helped a Zyra child, they would arrest him, or worse. He glanced back at the girl, sleeping peacefully under his coat. Her small hand was clutching a pendant that glowed softly with the same blue light as her eyes. Ryan reached out to touch it, but the moment his fingers brushed the surface, a wave of light flashed through the cave. The fire flickered, the air shimmered, and for a second, Ryan heard whispers in his mind, words he couldn't understand. He stumbled back, gasping. "What are you?" he whispered, staring at her. But she didn't answer, still lost in dreams. The pendant's glow slowly faded, leaving the cave in silence again. Ryan sat there through the long alien night, unable to sleep. He didn't know who she was or what danger she carried. All he knew was that he had saved her life, and in doing so, he might have changed his own forever. As dawn painted the ice plains in pale light, Ryan looked outside one last time. On a nearby ridge, a dark shape hovered, a surveillance drone, its red eye blinking softly. It turned, locked onto his position, and then vanished into the clouds. Ryan's heart sank. Someone now knew he had the girl. He didn't realize it yet, but the moment he wrapped his coat around that shivering alien child, he had stepped into a story that would shake the entire galaxy. The next morning, the storm was gone, but the silence outside felt even heavier. Captain Ryan Hale stepped out of the cave and looked at the wreckage of the alien pod half buried in snow. Smoke still rose from its twisted metal and strange blue ice had formed around it, almost like the world was trying to heal its wound. He could feel eyes watching him from the sky, but there was nothing there, just endless white. Back inside, the girl was still asleep, wrapped tightly in his coat. Her breathing was soft now, steady, the glowing veins under her skin fading to a dim light. Ryan crouched beside her, unsure what to do next. She looked too human, too fragile, and yet something about her made the air feel alive. He reached for his datapad, trying to send a signal to the nearest colony outpost. Static hissed across the screen. Then a message appeared, not from the outpost, but from a hidden channel. Do not engage. The Zira Queen must not know the child lives. Ryan stared at the words, confused. The Zira Queen? She had died more than 100 years ago during the Galactic War. No one had seen a living Zira since then. So how could this chum, Hild, even exist? He looked back at the girl, who now stirred slightly, murmuring strange sounds in a language he couldn't understand. Her voice was soft, melodic, but the words carried power. When she spoke, the tiny flames of the fire shifted, dancing as if they could hear her. Ryan blinked in surprise, his heart beating faster. Hey, he said quietly. It's okay. You're safe. The girl slowly opened her silver blue eyes, blinking at the light. For a moment she just stared at him, afraid, then pointed toward the cave's entrance. Her lips trembled as she whispered, They're coming. Ryan turned, scanning the snowy plain. At first he saw nothing, just the wind lifting small waves of white dust. Then he saw a flash of red light near the horizon, a patrol drone, moving low and slow, searching. He quickly covered the cave opening with snow and metal scraps, hiding the fire's glow. The girl clung to his arm, trembling. Ryan could feel her heart beating fast, too fast. It's all right, he whispered. We'll stay quiet. The drone passed overhead, scanning the area with its beam. Ryan held his breath, every muscle tight. The beam paused for a second near the cave, then moved on. He waited until it was gone before finally exhaling. The girl looked up at him, eyes wide. Name, she said softly, struggling to form the word. Ryan blinked, surprised that she spoke human language, even a little. My name? He asked, pointing to himself. Ryan. She repeated it carefully, her voice fragile. Ryan. Then she touched her small hand to her chest. Lyra, she said. Ryan smiled slightly. Lyra, that's a beautiful name. But his smile didn't last long. The warning message still echoed in his mind. Why would the Galactic Authority send him a message like that? And if Lyra's mother was the Zira Queen, how was the Queen still alive? He decided to check the escape pod again, hoping to find answers. He left Lyra near the fire and stepped outside. The wreckage looked different now. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface. When he touched them, a hidden compartment opened, revealing a small crystal core. It pulsed once, and then projected a flickering hologram. Ryan's breath caught as he saw the image. A tall woman with the same glowing eyes as Lyra, wearing royal armor of silver and light. Her voice was faint, broken by static, but one line came through clearly. If she survives, the galaxy may yet be saved. The message ended abruptly, and the crystal dimmed. Ryan stared at it in silence, his mind racing. Saved from what, he wondered, and who had tried to kill the child in the first place? When he returned to the cave, Lyra was awake again, holding his coat close. She pointed at the crystal in his hand, her eyes widening in fear. Mother, she whispered. Queen Seraphina. Ryan froze. That name hadn't been spoken aloud in more than a century. Before he could ask anything else, the ground shook beneath them. A deep humming sound filled the air, and lights appeared in the sky. Dark ships descending through the clouds. Ryan grabbed his gear and scooped Lyra into his arms. We have to move, he said firmly. Lyra clung to him, whispering something again and again. He didn't understand the words, but he could feel the fear in her voice. As they ran into the frozen wilderness, Ryan glanced back at the burning wreckage. Beams of red light swept the ground, scanning for life. He knew they weren't just looking for survivors, they were hunting the child. And deep inside, Ryan understood the phenomenon. In truth, the little girl he had saved wasn't just lost. She wasn't supposed to exist at all. He tightened his grip on her and ran faster. Whatever secret she carried, the whole galaxy wanted it buried. But Ryan Hale had made a promise without speaking a word. He would keep her alive, no matter what it cost. The night sky burned with streaks of red fire. Dozens of black ships drifted through the clouds like silent predators. Captain Ryan Hale watched them from the edge of the frozen cliffs, his heart pounding. He had seen many enemy ships in his life, but these were different, smooth, cold, and alive with strange blue lights. They moved like they could smell fear. Lyra stood beside him, wrapped in his coat, her silver hair shining in the dim light. She looked calm, but her eyes told another story. Fear mixed with something else, something powerful. Ryan, she whispered softly. They know. I'm here. Her voice trembled, but the air around her began to hum as if reacting to her emotions. Ryan looked at her, confused and worried. What do you mean they know? He asked. Lyra closed her eyes. They can feel me. My energy. Ryan glanced at the sky again. He didn't doubt her. The ships were searching, scanning the planet. He knew it was only a matter of time before they found his signal. They had to move now. He led Lyra down into the ice tunnels that ran beneath the cliffs, a place once used by miners decades ago. The tunnels were dark, cold, and narrow, but they offered a chance to hide. Their footsteps echoed softly, the sound swallowed by the silence of frozen stone. Ryan's mind raced as they walked. Who was chasing them? The Galactic Authority or someone else? He remembered the warning message. Do not let the Queen know the child lives. But what if it was already too late? When they finally stopped to rest, Lyra sat near an old mining lamp that still flickered with woe. Light. Her small hands trembled as she touched the floor, tracing symbols in the frost. Ryan leaned closer. What are you drawing? She didn't answer, just kept tracing, her blue light glowing brighter with every symbol she made. The air around them started to change, warmer, vibrating with strange energy. Suddenly, the lamp sparked and went out. Ryan's communicator began to buzz violently, static filling the air. Lyra, stop, he shouted, but she looked terrified, as if she wasn't in control. Her eyes glowed bright blue, and the ground under them began to shake. Ryan grabbed her shoulders, pulling her close. Look at me, Lyra. You're safe. Breathe. Slowly, her glow faded. The trembling stopped, and she fell weakly against him. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't mean to. It just happens when I'm scared, she whispered. Ryan's heart ached. He had seen weapons of war, but nothing compared to the power inside this little girl. He sighed, brushing her hair from her face. It's okay. We'll figure this out together. But deep down, he wasn't sure he could. If she could cause that kind of energy surge by accident, what would happen if she lost control again? A sharp sound broke the silence, a metallic echo from deeper in the tunnels. Ryan froze. He quickly turned off his device and motioned for Lyra to stay quiet. Voices followed, distorted by the echo. Scan every tunnel. She's close, a deep voice said. Ryan's pulse quickened. They were here. He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her into a side passage, crawling through narrow gaps until they reached an old mining elevator. It didn't work anymore, but it led to an escape shaft that opened near the old ridge. As they climbed, dust and ice rained down around them. Ryan could hear footsteps above, soldiers moving fast. Lyra gasped softly, her hand slipping, but Ryan caught her. Don't look down, he whispered, forcing a smile. We're almost there. When they finally reached the surface, the sky was glowing red with the reflection of fires. Ryan turned, headed back toward the tunnels, seeing shadows moving, metal figures with glowing eyes, drones, armed and silent. He picked up a shard of his broken communicator and smashed it against the rocks. If they were tracking him by signal, that would at least buy them a few minutes. Run, he said, pulling Lyra along the ridge. Snow whipped around them as the wind howled, then a loud voice echoed through the air. It came from a drone hovering above them. Ryan Hale, surrender the child, it boomed, or your colony will burn. Ryan's eyes widened. How did they know his name? His location? His past? Lyra's hand tightened around his, her small fingers glowing faintly. No, she said softly, her voice shaking. If they find me, everyone dies. Ryan didn't understand, but her fear told him enough. He pulled her close, whispering fiercely, then they'll have to go through me first. The drone's red light turned toward them like a single watching eye. For a second, time stood still, man and machine facing each other in the frozen dark. Then Ryan fired, hitting the drone with his old blaster. The explosion lit up the snow, and the echo carried for miles. Far above, the black ships turned sharply toward the sound. Ryan realized what he had done. He had just announced their location to the entire galaxy. He looked at Lyra, who stared back with fear and sorrow in her eyes. We run again, he said quietly. She nodded, and together they vanished into the white storm. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was just the beginning of the hunt. Snow fell like ash from the dark sky. Captain Ryan Hale and the little alien girl, Lyra, moved quietly through the frozen forest. They had been running for hours, hiding from drones and black ships that searched the mountains above. Every sound felt dangerous. The wind, the creaking trees, even their own footsteps. Lyra walked close beside him, her small hand clutching his coat. She looked tired, but her glowing eyes still watched everything, alert and afraid. Ryan's heart ached when he looked at her. No child should live like this, hunted, scared, and silent. They finally found shelter under a frozen ridge where an old structure jutted out of the ground. It looked ancient, made of smooth black stone covered in alien symbols that shimmered faintly in the snow. Ryan touched the surface. It was warm. This place, he murmured. It's not human. Lyra nodded slowly. "It's home," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan stared at her. "Home? You mean your people built this?" Lyra nodded again, placing her small hand against the stone. The symbols lit up under her touch, lines of light crawling across the wall like living veins. A deep hum filled the air as the ground beneath them began to move. Ryan stepped back as the wall split open, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. He hesitated, but Lyra looked at him and said softly, "She's waiting." Ryan didn't understand, but he followed her anyway. The staircase led into a vast underground hall, glowing with soft blue light. Strange floating crystals lit the air, showing carvings of tall, elegant figures. The Zyra. Ryan stopped in awe. He had only seen the Zyra in old war records, cold, merciless enemies, but the carvings told a different story. They showed people building, healing, creating light, not destruction. Lyra walked to the center of the chamber, where a circular platform stood. She stepped onto it, and the air around her shimmered. A hologram flickered to life above the platform. A tall woman, her presence graceful and powerful. Her eyes glowed the same blue as Lyra's, her hair flowing like silver light. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. Who is she?" he whispered. Lyra's voice was soft, filled with both fear and love. "My mother," she said. "Queen Seraphina." The hologram turned toward Ryan, and for a moment it almost felt alive. When she spoke, her voice echoed gently through the hall. "If you are seeing this, then my daughter lives." Ryan's heart raced. He watched as the image of the queen looked directly at him. "Human, you must protect her," the hologram continued, "for her blood carries the future of two worlds." Ryan took a step closer, trying to make sense of it. "Future of two worlds?" he repeated. The hologram showed images of the galactic war, human ships burning, Zira cities collapsing. Then a final image appeared, a baby with glowing blue eyes being carried away by a figure wearing a human uniform. Ryan's stomach tightened. "That baby, that's Lyra," he whispered. The hologram flickered again. "She is half Zyra and half human," the queen said, "born from peace, hunted by fear." Ryan couldn't believe what he was hearing. A child born from both races? It was impossible. No one had ever survived such a union. He turned to Lyra, who looked down, ashamed. "They say I'm wrong," she whispered. "They say I shouldn't exist." Ryan knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "They're wrong," he said softly. "You're proof that we can be better." Before she could reply, the ground began to shake violently. The hologram flickered, then dissolved. Loud rumbling echoed through the tunnels as dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra grabbed Ryan's hand, her eyes wide with panic. "They found us," she cried. Ryan pulled her toward the staircase, but the exit collapsed behind them, sealing them inside. He looked around desperately for another way out. Then he noticed a narrow tunnel at the far end of the chamber, partly covered by debris. "Come on," he shouted, pushing the rocks aside. As they crawled through, the ceiling cracked again, sending a burst of icy air and light through the tunnel. They tumbled down a slope and landed in a glowing underground lake. The water was cold but not freezing. It shimmered with faint light, as if alive. Ryan surfaced, gasping. Ian pulled Lyra close. Above them, explosions thundered, shaking the stone walls. He looked up and saw drones breaking through the roof, their red eyes scanning the water. Ryan pulled Lyra under the surface, swimming toward a faint light at the far end. His lungs burned, his vision blurred, but he kept going. When they finally reached the surface, they emerged into open air again, the forest beyond the mountains. Ryan dragged himself onto the shore, coughing. Lyra lay beside him, weak but breathing. Above them, the sky glowed with fire as the alien ruin exploded behind them. Ryan looked at the rising smoke and whispered, "So that's the truth. Your mother was the queen." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "She wanted peace," she said quietly, "but the galaxy wanted war." Ryan turned toward the horizon. He didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear. This child wasn't just someone's daughter. She was the key to everything humanity didn't understand, and now the whole galaxy would stop at nothing to find her. The night was silent again. The ruins of the alien temple still glowed faintly in the distance, smoke curling into the frozen air like ghosts. Ryan Hale sat beside a dying campfire, wrapping a blanket around Lyra's shoulders. She looked weak, her silver hair damp, her eyes half closed. He could see how much she had suffered, chased, frightened, and burdened by secrets too heavy for a child. Ryan looked up at the stars, feeling smaller than ever. The Queen's message kept echoing in his mind. She carries the future of two worlds. But how could one child decide the fate of humanity and the Zyra Empire? He didn't understand it yet, but deep inside he knew this truth was bigger than war. Lyra, he said softly, I need to know more about your mother, about what happened. Lyra hesitated, her fingers tracing small circles in the snow. Then she looked at him, eyes shining like melted ice. The war wasn't what they told you, she said. Quietly, my mother didn't want to fight. Ryan leaned forward listening. Lyra's voice was calm but filled with pain. She tried to make peace with the humans, but her own people were afraid. They said humans wanted our power, our energy, the light core. Ryan frowned. Light core? Lyra nodded. It's what lives inside us. The blue light you see, it's life itself. It can heal, it can destroy, and it can make worlds grow. Ryan's eyes widened. So that's what the war was about. Energy. Lyra nodded again. The humans attacked first. They wanted to take the light core, but Mother stopped them. She tried to protect both sides. Her voice shook, and a tear rolled down her cheek, glowing faintly before vanishing into the snow. Ryan sat in silence for a long time, the truth hitting him like ice. He had grown up hearing stories that the Zyra had started the war, that they were monsters who wanted to erase humanity. But now, sitting beside the daughter of their queen, he realized everything had been a lie. The humans feared what they didn't understand, Ryan whispered, and so did the Zyra. Lyra nodded slowly. That's why she created me, she said softly. Half human, half Zyra. A bridge between two worlds. Ryan stared at her, shocked. She believed that love could stop the war, Lyra continued, but when her council found out what she had done, they betrayed her. Ryan's throat tightened. What happened to her? Lyra looked at the fire, her face sad and distant. They tried to kill her. She escaped, but they destroyed everything she built, and they took me away before she could find me again. She paused, her voice breaking. They said I was a curse, a mistake. Ryan clenched his fists, his heart heavy. You're not a mistake, Lyra, he said firmly. You're proof that peace is possible. Your mother was right. But even as he spoke, the ground rumbled softly beneath them. A low hum filled the air, machines getting closer. Ryan stood quickly, scanning the horizon. Far away, he saw flickers of red light moving through the forest. They found us again, he said quietly. Lyra looked up at him, fear returning to her eyes. They won't stop, she whispered. They want the light core inside me. Ryan grabbed his pack and put out the fire. Then we keep moving, he said. But before they could go, his communicator buzzed faintly. He froze, pulling it out of his pocket. It was cracked and half broken. But a voice came through, distorted and weak. Ryan. He froze, his heart skipping. It was a woman's voice, soft, powerful, and familiar. Who is this? He asked, his voice trembling. Static filled the line. Then the voice spoke again, clearer this time. Ryan, this is Seraphina. Do not let them take my daughter, Lyra gasped, clutching his arm. Mother? She whispered, her eyes wide. Ryan couldn't believe it. The queen was alive. He tried to respond, but the signal broke into static again. Then a final message came through, faint but clear enough to shake his soul. They're coming for both of you. Trust no one. The line went dead. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ryan stared at the frozen communicator in his hand, his mind spinning. The queen, the most powerful being in the galaxy, was alive and reaching out to him, and she trusted him to protect her child. Lyra touched his arm gently, her voice barely a whisper. She's still out there, Ryan. I can feel her. Ryan nodded slowly. Then we'll find her, he said, no matter what it takes. Far above, the dark ships moved silently through the clouds, scanning every mountain. Ryan knew the hunt wasn't over. It was only getting worse. He looked at Lyra, the small girl who carried the light of two civilizations. In that moment, he made a promise to himself he would protect her, not because of what she was, but because of who she was, a child who had never asked for this war, and maybe, just maybe, she was the one who could end it, the fire of Determina. Tion burned in Ryan's eyes as he turned toward the horizon. Whatever truth lay ahead, he was ready to face it, because now he knew the truth. The war had never been about power. It had always been about fear, and he was done running from it. The wind carried the scent of smoke. The forest was no longer silent. Black ships hovered in the distance, and the sound of engines echoed through the frozen valley. Ryan Hale knew this was it. They were out of time. He knelt beside Lyra, who sat near the fire with her eyes half closed. Her small hands glowed faintly blue as she tried to heal a wound on his arm. Every time she used her power, the air shimmered around her like ripples in water. Ryan watched in awe and worry. "That's enough," he said softly. "You need to rest." Lyra shook her head. "I can't rest. They're close." Ryan looked toward the ridge. He could see shadows moving through the snow, machines and soldiers closing in. He had already set traps along the path using old alien tech from the ruins. If the soldiers came through, they wouldn't leave unharmed. But he knew it wouldn't be enough. They weren't just fighting humans anymore. Something darker was leading them. The communicator on his belt crackled again. A voice came through, cold, mechanical. "Ryan Hale, you are ordered to surrender the hybrid child immediately. Failure to comply will result in extermination." Ryan grabbed the device and threw it into the fire. "I'm done listening to orders," he said through clenched teeth. Lyra looked up at him, her silver eyes full of fear. "They'll kill you because of me," she whispered. Ryan knelt and placed a hand on her shoulder. "They'll have to go through me first," he said firmly. "I've faced worse than them." But he didn't believe his own words. Not completely. Moments later, the snow began to tremble. Dozens of red lights appeared between the trees. Drones. Eldier's armored vehicles. Ryan loaded his blaster, his breath steady. He looked at Lyra one last time. "When I say run, you run to the cave behind us. Understand?" She nodded silently. The first drone came into view, scanning the area. Ryan fired one clean shot, and it exploded in a flash of blue light. Then the battle began. Lasers tore through the trees, melting snow and ice. Ryan ducked behind a fallen log, returning fire as smoke filled the air. Lyra covered her ears, tears streaming down her face. The noise, the fear, it was too much. Her heartbeat grew faster, and the blue light under her skin began to brighten. "Ryan," she cried. "I can't." "Stay down," he shouted, firing again. He hit another soldier, but 3 more replaced him. They moved like machines. No hesitation, no mercy. Then everything stopped. A deep hum filled the valley, and the air grew heavy. Ryan looked up. Something massive was descending through the clouds. A ship larger than any he had ever seen. Dark silver, covered in glowing runes. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "She's here," she whispered. Before Ryan could ask who, the ship landed with a roar, sending waves of snow flying through the air. The soldiers stopped firing, lowering their weapons. A door opened on the side of the ship, and a figure stepped out, tall, elegant, glowing with blue light. Queen Seraphina, alive. Ryan froze, unable to breathe. She was more powerful than he had imagined, yet her expression carried sorrow instead of anger. "Human," she said, her voice calm but strong. "You protected my daughter." Ryan stood slowly, still holding his weapon. "I did what anyone would do," he said. The queen shook her head gently. "No," she replied. "You did what no one else dared to do." Lyra ran forward, her eyes filled with tears. "Mother," she cried. Seraphina knelt, opening her arms, and Lyra ran into her embrace. Blue light surrounded them both, glowing brighter and brighter until it filled the air. Ryan stepped back, shielding his eyes, but the reunion didn't last. From the horizon, new ships appeared. Black and red, bearing the symbol of the Galactic Authority, a voice boomed from the skies. "Queen Seraphina, you are under arrest for violation of the peace accord." Ryan turned to Seraphina. "They'll kill you both," he said. The queen's eyes glowed brighter, her face calm and fearless. "Let them come," she said. "They have forgotten what true power is." She raised her hand, and the snowstorm around them froze in midair. Time itself slowed. Every falling snowflake stopped moving. Every ship hung still. Ryan stared in disbelief. Even the air felt like glass, unmoving, silent, timeless. Seraphina turned to him, her voice soft. "You risked your life for my child. For that, you have my gratitude." Ryan could barely speak. "What will you do now?" he asked. Her expression darkened. "Now, I protect my daughter," she said, her voice echoing with quiet fury. The sky began to glow as her ship lifted off again. She looked at Ryan one last time. "You have made yourself an enemy of the galaxy, Ryan Hale," she said, "but you have also become its hope." As the ship rose into the clouds with Lyra inside, Ryan watched in silence. The snow began to fall again. Time returned to normal. The battlefield was empty, the enemies gone. Only Ryan remained, cold, exhausted, and forever changed. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "I guess peace was never meant to be easy." The sky burned gold and red as dawn touched the frozen valley. Captain Ryan Hale stood among the ruins of battle. his breath turning white in the cold air. The silence felt endless, broken only by the whisper of wind across the snow. He didn't know how long he had stood there, staring at the sky where Seraphina's ship had vanished. He thought it was over. He thought he had saved the child and the queen had taken her to safety, but deep inside he knew the galaxy never forgot. Peace was never simple, and mercy always had a price. Hours later, a shadow fell across him. Ryan looked up and saw a beam of light piercing the clouds. Then a ship descended, quiet and graceful. It wasn't one of the black warships. It was silver and white, humming softly, like it belonged to another age. When the doors opened, Queen Seraphina stepped out, with Lyra at her side. Ryan froze, surprised. He hadn't expected to see them again, not so soon. Lyra ran toward him, smiling for the first time since he'd met her. "Ryan!" she cried, throwing her arms around him. He smiled weakly and held her close. "You're safe," he whispered. "That's all that matters." But Seraphina's face was different now, her expression calm but heavy, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "Human," she said softly. "You broke laws older than your species." Ryan tensed. He had expected gratitude, maybe forgiveness, not judgment. "You interfered with royal blood," Seraphina continued, her voice echoing with quiet power. "By your laws, you are a criminal. By mine, you are a hero." Ryan blinked, unsure what to say. "I didn't do it for laws," he said. "I did it because she was cold, scared, and alone." Seraphina studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Compassion," she said. "That is the one thing this galaxy forgot." Before Ryan could reply, the ground shook. From the horizon, new ships appeared, this time bearing both human and alien insignias. The Galactic Authority had arrived, their message clear. No peace, no mercy. Dozens of soldiers surrounded the clearing, weapons ready. A loudspeaker crackled. "Queen Seraphina, surrender immediately. The hybrid child must be contained, and the human executed for treason." Lyra gasped, clutching Ryan's hand. "No!" she cried. "They can't hurt him." Seraphina turned, her blue eyes blazing with anger and sorrow. "I told them," she said softly. "I told them peace would demand sacrifice." Ryan stepped forward. "Don't fight them," he said. "They'll destroy everything." But Seraphina didn't answer. She raised her hands, and the snow around her began to rise like a living storm. The sky darkened, lightning flashing through the clouds. "Mother, stop!" Lyra screamed. Seraphina's voice thundered through the air. "They hunt what they fear. They destroy what they cannot control." Ryan could feel the power around her. It was beautiful and terrifying. He ran forward, shouting through the roar of wind, "If you fight them, you'll prove them right." For a moment, the queen hesitated, her eyes locking onto his. Then Lyra stepped between them both, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "Please," Lyra said softly, her voice breaking. "No more fighting." She raised her hands, and light burst from her body, pure, white, and warm. It spread across the battlefield, touching every soldier, every weapon. The light didn't burn, it calmed. The soldiers froze, lowering their weapons, their eyes wide. For the first time, the galaxy saw what the light core truly was. Ryan stared in awe. Lyra's power wasn't destruction, it was peace. Her gift healed wounds, melted fear, and silenced hatred. Even Seraphina's fierce expression softened, her voice trembling. "My daughter," she whispered. "You've done what I could not." The queen knelt, taking Lyra's hand. "This is your judgment, human," she said to Ryan. "You've shown me that mercy is not weakness." She looked up at the silent soldiers surrounding them. "You all came to capture us," she said, her voice echoing. "Now you will go home and remember this moment, the day a child stopped a war without firing a single shot." The soldiers stood motionless, their ships hovering above, powerless to act. The storm faded, and sunlight touched the snow once more. Seraphina turned back to Ryan, her voice softer now. "You have given my daughter hope," she said, "and for that, I cannot punish you." Ryan nodded quietly, relief washing over him. Lyra smiled, still holding his hand. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Ryan looked at her and smiled sadly. "Not soon, little star, but someday." Seraphina placed her hand on his chest, a faint blue mark glowing beneath her palm. "Wherever you go," she said, "the light will remember you." Then she stepped back, her ship lifting into the air. Lyra waved from the doorway, her voice echoing softly. "Thank you, human." And then they were gone, two lights rising into the endless sky. Ryan stood alone again, the wind brushing past him. The snow glittered in the sunlight like tiny stars. He looked up, a faint smile on his lips. "Guess I just changed the galaxy," he whispered. with a coat. The screen fades to black, soft music plays, and somewhere beyond the stars, a child's voice whispers, "Peace begins with one kind act."